I'm Marc Burckhardt, and I'm a painter. That's what I do. I always tell people I've never met a kid that doesn't like to draw. It's just that some of them don't stop, and I was one of them. So I was doing this my whole life. I don't think I ever really thought about doing anything else. And I think by the time I realized I had to make a living doing this, it was kind of too late. It's just natural to me, and I've been super lucky that I've been able to do it all my life. So I've lived in Austin most of my life, certainly most of my adult life. And I was born in Germany, but grew up in Waco. Both my folks taught at Baylor. We would spend summers in Germany with family. So it's kind of these two different worlds that I kind of grew up in. Germany's got a really strong connection to me in terms of my life, but also in culture. I think it's reflected in the art that I make. My background was kind of art history as well as painting and printmaking. Still have that connection that's huge to me, both. People will say, what's your work like? I'm like, I can't describe it to you. It's much easier for me to show it to you. But I think also the storytelling component, the symbolism behind it is really important to me. I like to play with those genres of landscapes and portraits. And I have a very specific story I want to tell. It's not so important to me whether you understand that story. I think that's something else that you learn when you make things. At a certain point you realize, I don't want a novelist to explain to me what the novel's supposed to mean. That would take all the fun out of it. I think it's that experience between the viewer and the art that makes art come alive. When I first talked to Still, it was, the core idea was we're still Austin, we're a Still, but we're still Austin. It's that spirit that's always been in the city, that's really about creative people, about open-minded people, about a way of thinking that's very uniquely Austin. And that was sort of the core of it. And the kernel of the project was to capture those spirits and the musician, the naturalist, the artist, and to embody them in some way. And I'd say that was a perfect fit for me. So then it was really about my kind of going back into my creative cave and thinking about those icons, those individuals, and really coming back and saying, this is how I think they should be presented. Trying to make sure there was a thread that was both visual and conceptual that tied all these different characteristics together. And I think it's something that's deep in you. If you grew up in Texas, it's got its own mythology, it's its own place. I always say about Austin, I mean, if Texas is its own country, Austin is its own planet. I mean, this city's just got a vibe, feel to it that I think you don't find anywhere else. Well, I think that, a lot of people argue maybe the demographics would say that whiskey is appealing to men. And if you look at most whiskey labels, they're very heavy on type. And they've got a very strong kind of classic manly kind of feeling. I didn't even want to think in terms of what is out there. I wanted to think about what's the problem to be solved. And to me, icons, if you think of the four elements or the virtues, the three fates, these are all classically female personifications, and that just felt right to me. But it was kind of revolutionary. I can't speak for other creative people, but I think there's a romantic notion that art is just, pure joy expressed on a blank canvas, and it's not that way for me. I mean, I sit down, I think it through. It can be a really frustrating experience. It's hard work to get it right, to make something that you feel is important, and I think that's the reason to do it. It's not easy. So there is a lot of frustration involved and a lot of pressure involved in, that you put on yourself to make things hit the mark that you've set for yourself. And if you're doing it right, you're probably never hitting that mark entirely.